What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over the latest updates, data points, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi all around did have a pretty solid day, went up 2.94%. After hours is going down slightly, but nothing too crazy. 25.72 the low, 26.74 the high, and a fair amount of volume. So 44 million shares being traded, 69 is the average. So when it came down to the overnight trading or even generally the pre-market, like things looked like Armageddon was going to happen for the most part. But luckily enough, we actually had some pretty solid data. So today we had ADP employment came in at 16.2 thousand, 2 rounds of payroll. So for October and November, October was blah. Obviously the market kind of disregarded and kind of canceled these out. So that came in at negative 105,000. November came in at 64, forecast of 25. And then we did have retail sales slightly below the forecast, but this is exactly the type of data that the market does want to justify a rate cut, because we don't want horrifically bad, we just want a little bit, and that was it. So generally, everything kind of came in line with expectation, including unemployment. Later, after the bell, we did have some flash data. Composite, manufacturing, and services all came in slightly below the forecast, still above 50, so shows more of a expansion is still occurring, but still, I think this further justified a rate cut. So all in all, pretty successful day if you kind of think about it. Some sectors, not so much, because I think some sectors were actually taking this actual data for face value. But in SoFi's case, the biggest thing for it is going to be potentially more rate cuts, and that is obviously a good thing. SoFi did put out something this morning just saying Cashmere and SoFi launch Culture and Capital, a new podcast exploring the world of early stage investing. So it's kind of interesting. Honestly, I know there's a lot of other, like Tanner and a couple other individuals that constantly do cover SoFi. It would have been advantageous just to kind of hire one of them as more of a consultant and get them to run the podcast. Of course, I'm sure they'd have to tone it down on kind of some speculative topics, but it's interesting to see this come up. So yeah, I think this is good. Is this a crazy catalyst that you need to buy SoFi? Not so much, but still, maybe there's some opportunity for Tanner to really get involved, because I know that other guy, Data Driven Investing, just got hired with SoFi. So kind of crazy stuff. Again, like I said, I think this is kind of interesting. It's outside the box, but it's not really a good catalyst, at least what I think, but what do I know in life? Aside from that though, looking at shorts, they did increase about 68,000 shares. So not too much. 9.2% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 114.2 million shares overall being shorted. So the whole naked shorting seems to have as well rectified itself. So shares on loan being 114.37, and so 114.22, slightly below that. So naked shorting has somewhat stopped momentarily, but I'll kind of give you further updates on that in the future. Again, that's if this type of inverse type of scenario does play out or continues. DTC being 1.64 days does still signal that shorts are rather overextended. Aside from all that though, kind of low volume for the options. 22 million in calls, 9.01 in puts. 47% of all the options being done were bullish in nature though. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around 27 to 27.50. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 25 for the most part. So as far as data points, we do have Thursday and Friday. Those are going to be big days. Big companies unveiling the earnings. So Micron, I think that is after hours on Wednesday. So that's going to be a big one. And then as I kind of mentioned on my weekend video, we do have the interest rate decision from Japan. So that is Thursday evening. So just kind of add those to your watch list. We might have some extra volatile times surrounding those days. But nonetheless, though, we did see, for the most part, some mixed. So you did have some institutions selling, some buying, but for the most part, it was more oriented towards the buy. So big one, 40 million, that was a buy. 8.3, that was a sell. 5.2 was a buy, and so forth and so forth. So feel free to pause it and go through it. These were the transactions though occurring on the secondary market. These were some of the ones that did occur on the dark pool. So the fact that shorts didn't really do that much kind of as well, it justifies not much activity here. So dark pool, as I always say, is often enough used by shorts and other hedge funds, but hedge funds you can kind of see were somewhat active. So 60,000, that most likely was a hedge fund. Anything whole number, that typically is hedge fund related. Aside from that, with it closing at 26.58, it is trading right now between this pivot and this S1. So 26.48 is going to be that strong support, followed by 26.09 and 25.47. And so today we did have a low of 25.72, smack dab in the middle between this S2 and this S3. Aside from that though, 27.10, 27.72, and 28.11 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. Aside from that though, quickly popping right back over here, even though SoFi did close in the green, it still did close below that 100-day moving average, so not necessarily the best. That does place a lot of importance on tomorrow. So tomorrow it does really need to close above that 26.64, that 100-day moving average, if you're going to see more of a recovery. Luckily, in SoFi's case, it loves to do that V-shaped recovery all the time, and I think that's kind of SoFi's special, because that type of recovery hasn't been really occurring in the broader market. Normally during this kind of stage, most stocks actually just went straight down like a rock. SoFi at least has been having a lot of institutional transactions on their side. But for tomorrow, just watch for that 100-day moving average. But still, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of volatile times ahead. So best thing to do is dollar cost average. If you pay attention to the day-to-day kind of intricate moves of SoFi, it's going to give you gray hairs. It's going to stress you the hell out, because yeah, if you are heavy on margin, one of these sell-offs, that will obliterate you. And it's very difficult to see sometimes, but this is best thing to do is just dollar cost average with SoFi. And yeah, especially way back when it was back at the like $10 range, or even prior to here when I kind of started to cover it back in 2023 and 2024. If you dollar cost averaged during that time frame, whether that be bi-weekly, monthly, or whatever, you'd be laughing right now. You wouldn't even care about the day-to-day price action right now. So all in all, pretty interesting day. Let me know your general thoughts on SoFi, and what's your kind of viewpoint on potentially the mixed data that we got today, and how that is going to really justify a rate cut. So the market, again, kind of seemed very hyped up over this. So right now, a 24.4% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. So we'll have to wait and see how it all does play out, but honestly, SoFi is a solid all-around stock. So let me know your general thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Discord. It is completely free. A lot of good people talking about stocks, options, crypto, everything that you ever need in life. So with that said, appreciate all of you watching.